Hey Neppers, it's me, Wild Neptune. I'm on the page of one of my favorite heroes in the game, Yufine. And her Moonlight version is coming out very soon. So this video, gonna talk about that, how I think she'll turn out to be, and if you should pull on her, or maybe pull on one of the current heroes on the current Mystic rotation. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. If you like more guides like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button to get notified immediately when they're gonna pop up. Anyway, let's get going. Here she is, and here are her stats. She's a Dark Knight Aquarius, I believe the first one that is of this class and sign for 5-star. Anyway, very high defense at 713, good health at 6600. She has okay speed for a knight at 106. She actually has some crit chance in her kit here, it looks like. No crit damage and no ER or effectiveness. Her imprint release is health percentage and her concentration is defense. Her skill 2 is a passive, Inner Abyss. When the enemy is not an elite or boss monster, that means so no PvE, reduces the effect of combat readiness increases granted to the enemy by 30%, 50 with molars. This effect is not stacked with other passive effects of the same name. When attacked, gains 20 fighting spirit and has a 30% chance to counterattack. At the end of the turn, when fighting spirit is full, dispels all debuffs from the caster. Okay, so this does stack with Politis's CR thingy, which means that if you have both of them together, units do not get, well, enemy units do not get any CR pushes, which is pretty nutso. This makes her pretty much suited to fight what is probably the most dominant cleave we've had in a long time, which is the Requiem Rowana cleave, as just one of Politis or Abyssal Yufine pretty much kills that composition. And if you can draft both of them in the same draft, that is pretty significant. Or, you know, maybe they pre-banned it, and then the pre-banners also give you other options to maybe fight that type of cleave, which is already a pretty big selling point for this unit here. Not to mention the other part of the passive, which also gets that counterattack chance at 30%, which is basically a free counter set, and a lot of cleave teams that you'll probably be fighting against have a lot of AoE, and therefore her counterattack might proc more often, and she gets the bonus too that even if she doesn't counterattack, she also gains 20 fighting spirit, which can also be pretty nice. Her skill 3 is Frenzied Strike, consumes 100 fighting spirit, and a 5-turn, 4-turn cooldown with the Mola. This does mean that you do need 100 fighting spirit to use this ability. So, inflicts trauma on the caster for 3 turns before attacking all enemies, dispelling all buffs, and decreasing CR by 50%, innately ignores ER. And trauma is decreases defense by 70%, so that is basically a self-initiated defense break, but increases attack and speed by 100%. If defense prior to the effective trauma is 2000 or higher, the stat increases effects are doubled, which means that you get 200% attack and 200% speed, which sounds pretty nuts. Is it worth the trade-off for basically defense breaking yourself? I don't know yet. We'll have to see about that. So let's talk about the skill. So, besides the obvious downside with neutering your own defenses, CR decrease that ignores ER seems pretty good on an AoE. Also dispels all buffs, which means that immunity is not going to help you. And just having this huge stat bonus is also pretty nuts also. Now, it does require 100 fighting spirit, so to use it on the first turn, you might have to get a little bit of RNG going your way. This is really interesting because I can see matches where you don't really get to use this until a little bit later on, maybe like turn 3 or something like that. And is she good enough in those matches where maybe the enemy can counterattack? Now, it does have some built-in safety here where with the pushback that this ability has, maybe her speed gets increased by so much she gets laps around again and can do another attack and gain advantage that way. So that is something we really have to watch out for, and this really also depends on how well that you can build this unit, but it does seem like here 2000 defense or higher is a requirement to use this unit. Now, they have stated too that if she was buffed before, so defense buff, say vigor, something like that, that does count. And let's say your defense is like 1900, but after vigor it goes above 2000, she still gets the bonus, which is good to know. Now, should you rely on this? Probably not. But let's see the rest of her kit, and then we'll also look at some of her multiplies, stuff like that too. Her skill 1 is Dragon's Breath, attacks all enemies, also acquires 20 fighting spirit. Attacks all enemies with Dragon's Breath with a 45% chance, and I believe it is a 60% chance to decrease attack for 1 turn, which is nice because she has no defenses now. Damage dealt increases proportional to the caster's defense. So, remember here is that you have a lot of defense to start out with, but then you have no defense afterwards. So this is an attack that looks really front-loaded. Use it on the first turn. However, there's a little bit bonus here. When caster is granted trauma, activates Unbridled Outburst instead of Dragon's Breath. And what Unbridled Outburst does is penetrates the target's defense by 70%. Which means that you get this bonus defense pen to make up for the fact that you have, well, no defense yourself. So what I did was I just put some gear on my False Cecilia here to kind of simulate what it might be to have gear on the new Yufine. Now, since Yufine does not have a, alternative where we can have a 1-to-1, this is the best I can do on short notice. So it'll be a little bit off here. I believe Yufine's defenses are going to be higher and her health will be lower. Otherwise, relatively similar, I would say. So just looking at the gear, this is the weapon, the helmet, chest piece, the neck, the ring, and the boots. So some people might opt for, say, a little more bulk, maybe not as much damage, as you do gain that 200% speed and attack when you have the special buff. Some people might want to go on a little bit slower on a counter set. I don't know, maybe being at 666 speed is a little bit, well, maybe you don't need all that speed, and maybe you can dedicate more to other stats. I don't know yet. This is going to be a unit, it's very unique, so will require some testing. Anyway, these are the stats that I am going to use when we look at the damage calculator coming up. So just as a notice here, this hero is not yet released and skill multiplies are subject to change, but we still have everything else plugged in, and we are target 1000 defense. Let's move that up to about 1400 here to get a little more, I would say, accurate representation. Actually, you know what? She's against the cleave units, so maybe go down to like 1200 or something like that, just for the sake of what she's probably going to be fighting against. So we have a defense here, and just without any other buffs, her S1 will do about 32, and her S3 will do about 23 to 2400, which is not really anything special right there. The S3 is more for the effects it gives and not the actual damage. However, once she uses the S3, let's click this button here. So the S1 is not really a thing anymore because now she'll use Unbridled Outburst, which does 10k, 10.5k, which is quite a lot for an S1, I would say. And she might go fast enough, which she just like laps around another time and it does another S1. So maybe she'll get off 20k of damage after she uses his S3 and Seer pushes everybody back. That sounds pretty good, because you have to think about this way. She could be so fast that after the pushback, she just takes 2 turns back to back and can snipe away a unit, which seems pretty good. Again, will require testing, but that is a possibility with the unit. Now let's see what happens if the defenses are maybe a little bit higher, like maybe just find like a knight or a defensive unit. Maybe there is like, I don't know, an arrow well or something like that. Maybe there is like an adamant shield or some other bonus here. So she's still doing like 6k for an S1, which is okay. I suppose probably not worth the defense break, I would say, unless maybe you're killing maybe the sole DPS or something like that with it, where then the damage would be, I would say, a little bit higher, definitely. Yeah, you're looking at like 8k here, like about 12k with the soul burn. A very interesting unit nonetheless. I will say no artifact proc because her best in slot will probably be Elbrus, just because she gets a fighting spirit when she counterattacks, and she is a knight. So yes, another unit that wants to use Elbrus Ritual Sword, which seems to be the new Sigurds in terms of artifacts now. Now, I'm not going to go too much into the combat demo, as they should be always taken with a grain of salt here, but I do agree that both Sulika and especially Abigail might be strong picks with her. Abigail especially, because her special ability to protect the back row is very nice. Also, maybe things like Troublemaker Crozet could be a good use unit with her. Carmen also has invincibility, although I would say Carmen's only okay, because it's likely that the Yufine, if she's faster, will just lap around, and the invincibility isn't going to do anything anyway. Skill Nullifier doesn't go away, so it's a way to get skill nullifiers on, like say maybe a Faithless Litica for a very aggressive composition. That could be also pretty useful there. Sulika also with defense buff and the ice cream to give her a little bit of a bonus here. I would say the ice cream is actually a little bit more beneficial, because you should not rely on having a defense buff to get that 2000, but maybe it does also help a little bit too with the fact that she defense breaks herself, so it kind of evens out a little bit, even though I believe defense buff is only like 40% bonus defense or something like that, so definitely not as much, but will help stave off some of that damage you might be taking. Now the big question, should you pull on her? This is one of the harder ones, because her kit is very unique, and she does very unique things, so we really have no gauge in how good she might be. Now, I do think that she is going to be very good against the meta cleave composition right now, which is Zeo plus Rekavawana, Rand, all the other stuff here. And I do know from experience, if you do not cleave, you hate cleave. And therefore, she's probably one of your best friends and one of your favorite units already right now. Now, do you need it to fight that cleave? Maybe. Like, it's really hard to say. Again, I do think that her and Politis combined pretty much ruined that composition, and then maybe, you know, another unit comes out, or there's another type of clear that comes out that she's not good against. I don't know. But right now, if you dropped into meta, like immediately today, I think she'd be used against that team. Is that enough to pull on the unit? Maybe, right? It is the dominant cleave composition on ladder at the moment. Now, against other teams that are not cleave, that's harder to say again. We saw her numbers, again, subject to be changed, but they look okay. She is, I would say, a very big risk versus reward unit versus non-cleave compositions. And there is also the other units that are currently on the Mystic rotation right now. So let's take a look at those really quickly. So the current 4 units on the banner are Apocalypse Ravi, Faithless Litica, Solitaria, and Commander Pavel. These are actually 4 pretty good units right now. Now, all 4 of them have seen declines in their usage and popularity, and also viability, I would say. Apocalypse Ravi is pretty hard to use at the moment. There's just a lot of injury that is going around, a lot of ways to kind of counter her, kind of not make her feel as useful right now. Moonlight Shoe is actually one of the biggest reasons why, in my opinion, she destroys Apocalypse Ravi. She was just faster. She does so much damage, and Apocalypse Ravi has a hard time really competing with that. Phaedrus Litica was kind of knocked down a little bit just because Mo Landy is so good. And Phaedrus Litica really doesn't do enough against her, especially when Mo Landy comes with that built-in anti-crit. And if Phaedrus Litica is not critting, she is basically a worthless unit. Solitaria too. Mo Landy also can't be stunned and stuff like that. Now, the blinds and speed downs and stuff like that, they do help. But Solitaries also find it kind of hard to survive a little bit in this current meta. Now, she is still very strong when she's drafted in the right spots. I would say that Solitaria definitely has the highest peaks out of all the units here. Ravi's probably still the one that's most consistent overall, but is not a top tier unit anymore in my opinion either. And Commander Pavel, if you're a cleaver, you probably already have him, or you're thinking about getting him on your list here. And I don't think that I would say Holiday Yufine, that Mo Yufine is going to be usable in cleave, which does mean that if you want to get Commander Pavel and you don't have your Moonlight Blessing anymore, that you will probably pick him up instead. Anyway, that's all I have for you right now. Be on the lookout for my other video coming out on Kane, and be sure to check out my new Epic 7 time series and other guides also. Anyway, I'm Wild Neptune. It's been a good one. Nep out.